Hello, trading is closed on July 19th, 2017. Let's go over yesterday's call. I said there was a target of 2455.44. I thought it would print unless we gapped sharply in the other direction, and that's what happened, so the call's killed before the open. Here was a target from July 17th that printed. Cross it off the list. Add this one to the list. We have a new target from today's trading, 2470.73, most likely to print tomorrow. Here's the pattern. Says the move's false. There's the target. I think unless we gap up sharply, that number will print. It's not too far away from where we are now, so if we don't gap up sharply, it's very plausible. Let me talk first about gaps, and then we'll make a call for the pattern and the prices on Thursday's trade. Now, when I make predictions, I make them based on the information I have at the time, and I make them usually around 6 to 8 o'clock Chicago time. I don't trade the overnight session very often, but that doesn't mean the overnight session does not contain useful information. I just don't have the information when I make the prediction. Now, there are lots of people who wait until just before the open to make their predictions. I know my friend the late William Blount usually posted his calls right at the open, and everyone's entitled to do that. You just have to realize people who post their calls that late have information I don't have. And sometimes that information can change the call. So, when I'm looking for this number based on the information that prices are here, and prices gap up, that's information I didn't have, and based on that information, that call's killed. Now, if someone wants to say the call's wrong, they have every right to do that. As far as I'm concerned, if I kept my mouth shut until just before the open, I wouldn't have posted this call in the first place. I just don't have the option of doing that because I work full time, and just before the market opens, I'm driving to work. So rather than post no calls at all, I post a call, and I also state the criteria under which the call is canceled before we open. And that applies to what I'm going to say about tomorrow's trade. If there's a sharp gap, it can undermine everything I say. That's information I just do not have. One thing which ought not change is the daily pattern, which I think will be an early low, typically at the low of the first hour, and then the pattern which tends to rally, often strongly, into the close with a high in the final hour of trading. If we're going to drop with any significance tomorrow, the vast majority of the time we get a clue by dropping strongly in the first hour of trading. Now, what about prices for tomorrow? Well, July 19th was my call for a change in trend. I didn't call for any direction. It certainly looks to me as though we're breaking up on the as though we're breaking out on the upside, and that prices certainly could go significantly higher. We had a number of sell signals, and when these sell signals don't work, they usually fail in grand style. That's why you have to have stops in all your positions. There is possibility that we're at or close to a high here. That's not my favorite call at this time, but let's go over the possibility and identify a resistance area, which, if it falls, should give the all clear to the upside. First of all, if we gap down sharply tomorrow, and that's possible because we have a wall into the close and we have a close right at the high of the day, a option close, and very often that leads to a gap down at tomorrow's open. When you're hitting all-time highs like this, it only works half the time, and the 50-50 bet isn't much of a bet. But if we drop down, we should typically rally, overcome this high, and find resistance over it. To me, that's about the only chance we have for having a high in this area. If we drop from the open, I would anticipate support under this price. Now here was my count from June the 20th, and I get strong resistance at 2478.66 cash. Here's your wave brown A. If you set that to 61.8%, you'll see that you hit the target at the end of brown C. Now if this is wave C and this is large blue A, and you set it at 50%, target's at the same price. Now what if you rearrange the count of wave large blue C a little bit? What if blue C were A, B, and C? We saw the A, we saw the B. Now we're in wave big blue C. If you set blue A equal to 78.6%, there's the same target. And now if you're in small c, blue C, and you set that equal to A, 5 waves of A and then B, you'll see that A and C, purple A and purple C, are all equal at that price. So we have strong Fibonacci resistance at 2478.66. I personally no longer think we're going to top here. I think we are going higher because we've broken a lot of resistance areas. But if we're going to top, I think the most likely way to do it would be if we gapped down at the open, found support under this price, rallied to 2478.66, and then reversed from there. I think it's a pretty tall order, and we're just going to keep it in mind. But for right now, if we don't gap up sharply, here's my target. If we gap down sharply under these lows, then this is a major high, and that number I mentioned doesn't mean anything. And if we gap up sharply, the number is killed before the open. As I say, it's information I don't have. This number and 2478.66 are the ones I'll be watching for tomorrow, and that's today's call.